Welcome to Shadow Amate Talks. I am Max. Kat is somewhere. And today we have a debate between First Amender, Aron Ra, Bryce, and Anthony. And the topic is Christianity logical? So Bryce and Anthony are the first ones to start. Whoever wants to go first, as soon as you start speaking, will start the timer.
You want to go first, Anthony?
Sure.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so we're taking a position that Christianity is logical. So my first point is going to be a defense of a commonly used logical argument, which is the Epicurean paradox. For those of you not aware, the Epicurean paradox goes as follows. Premise 1, God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent. Premise 2, God has the power, knowledge, and goodness necessary to stop all evil. Conclusion 1, God ought to stop all evil. Premise 3, evil exists. Conclusion 2, God isn't omnipotent, omniscient, neither nor omnibenevolent. So the treatment that I'm going to give for this is twofold. First, on metaphysical assumptions behind the given premises and the attributes mentioned, and second, on the existence of evil itself. So first, on the properties. If it is the case that power, knowledge, and love are of the same order, then it leaves them no more than conceptually or virtually distinct. If this is the case, then the outworking of power is necessarily done fully from the first to second actuality, with no work of the will, and must be done, in which case this critique will stand. However, the way that we understand this is that the movement from first to second actuality is energized through the will by the desire and knowledge of the mover. As such, omnipotence is the statement that first actuality is absolutely active with no passion. This is the designation that God is not acted upon. And as such, the activities are the outworking of the will in the second actuality. This leaves the lovingness of God as according to second actuality, rather than non-distinct to the first actuality. The power to love and the activity of love are meaningfully distinct, meaning that the effects of this moving is understood according to the proper desire. This makes conclusion 1 moot, given no necessity to act all at once in a single instance, as the knowledge of God dictates that a particular effect is made actual at its proper time, according to the willingness of the one who receives it, and the power by which they are to cooperate in the outworking of God's energy. And the second is on the existence of evil. Evil itself has no ontology. Its existence is merely conceptual, an outworking of the human will to reason nomically. Its existence is parasubstance, or of a privation of the participation in God's energies. As such, the desire of God is that man cooperates in his energies, by which man may have the volition to deny such participation in his gnomic condition. The desire of God is for man to cooperate with him, meaning that man's desire must be aligned to his desire for the participatory grace of cooperation to be actualized. The work of God is done in enjoining of himself to the natural energies of man in the incarnation. Thus, his concern in regards to evil is the total reconciliation of man to himself, which is inevitable in the eschaton, or at the end. At this point, whether man desires evil is useless due to the eradication of the gnomic will. Man's deliberation is thus to participate by desire in the divine energies. A man who desires evil before cannot, and is burning in his own lack of participation in true substance. This, by a roundabout case, actually addresses conclusion 1 by saying that God does stop all evil. Even if we were to continue in the specificity of the previous case, God actualizes according to his own absolute power. The passion of evil is rendered not. Being untouched by passion, he desires not to destroy something that doesn't exist, but fills it with true substance. And secondly, I'm going to give a defense of free will. 1 minute. I'll be quick then. I'm going to address free will. I'm going to give a definition. The definition is as follows. Free will is the voluntary activity of an agent according to their own power. A common argument that's used for free will or against free will is that if a man has free will, why is it that man can't choose to fly, or just something else ridiculous that is often mentioned? man acts according to his own power, and free will is dictated by his power. Flying is not within man's power. Thus, him being able to fly or not is moot. It doesn't address anything regarding free will. This is simply not something that man can actualize. Uh, 15 seconds. I'll yield my time.
All right, no problem. Thank you so much. Let me reset that. And Bryce, whenever you are ready.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Bryce J, and today I'm going to demonstrate that Christianity is indeed logical compared to my opponents who think otherwise. What does it even mean in order for something to be logical in the first place? I have three different sources for you today. We have Merriam-Webster Dictionary, where it says according to the rules of logic, such as the law of non-contradiction, the law of identity, the law of excluded middle, etc. The Collins Dictionary, where it says that it is a conclusion or result of a series of facts or events, is the only one which can come from it according to the rules of logic. Again, like the three laws of logic in the classical sense. And the Britannica, where it says agreeing with the rules of logic, sensible or reasonably. We can see that it's pretty casually agreed upon, at least with these basic dictionaries, that the worldview simply being logical just implies that is something that follows the laws of logic, as can be sensible or reasonable. There are three main laws of logic that would be used to critique the viability of Christianity in terms of its logicality. The first one would be the law of identity, where it states that every entity is identical to itself. A is A, right? A thing is what it is, and its properties remain constant within a given context. The law of non-contradiction, where it says that a statement and its negation cannot both be true at the same time and in the same sense. You cannot have a P and a not P simultaneously. Something cannot both be true and false simultaneously. The law of excluded middle. For any proposition, it must either be true or false. There is no third possibility or middle ground. A statement is either true or false if we're talking about facts, of course. When it comes to comparing worldviews, this is the bedrock for determining the viability of any worldview whatsoever. If a worldview breaks one of these laws in any of its explanations, then it can be considered illogical. Now, I already know the approach because I've had many of these debates in the past. Either my opponents are going to collapse logicality into empirically testable, or they're going to attempt to say that it breaks the law of non-contradiction by stating some kind of statement in the Bible that supposedly contradicts another section in the Bible, which if they choose to do so, they are free to, of course, but that's a whole other issue that we can happily discuss during the debate. I'm not going to cover that during the opening. As I hold the position that other than a couple things like scribal errors, for example, with things like number details, like for example in the book of Kings and Chronicles, that the Bible contains absolutely no contradictions or of any historical fact or any form of theological contradiction to the Eastern Orthodox Church. My epistemology is not like normal evangelicals that my opponents talk to on a regular basis, as I have more attestations to my worldview instead of just simply the Bible in of itself. First, we have the account of a course of Jesus Christ, which is the Gospels and the epistles of Paul, all of these things attesting to the truth of the Old Testament. We have the attestation of the first to the third century church fathers, which attest to early Christianity and the movement that was caused by the attestation of the apostles, including multiple accounts of men who personally knew the apostles for the theology, such as St. Ignatius of Antioch and St. Polycarp, who were disciples of St. John the Apostle himself. Also, St. Dionysius the Areopagite, who is traditionally known as a witness to the dormition of the Mother of God, Mary, and also a disciple of St. Paul, etc. The Orthodox Church, number 3, also has a completely unbroken and documented line of apostolic succession from the apostles who ran the bishopric from when the apostles were in that seat to the patriarchs that we do have today, passing down our interpretation and doctrine directly from them. And number 4, we obviously have the entire philosophy surrounding making arguments for all things regarding the existence of God and how he exists as the Trinity, one God in 3 persons. So we have different things within the worldview that have the ability to verify other claims. I want to make this clear that if they attempt to make the low tier move at attempting to critique my position solidly from the empirical view, that they actually already fail at the debate prompt itself, as the prompt necessitates something's logicality, and something not being empirically verified by itself doesn't automatically determine something as illogical, because the existence of logic itself is not verified empirically itself, meaning that they have to find an internal inconsistency and perform an internal critique to actually prove their case here today. I am excited to see the argumentation that they have. Will they attack with biblical arguments, ethical issues, which hilariously enough actually doesn't also prove the illogical nature of things? Or will they critique the Trinity? We don't know. But Anthony and I stand ready to defend the word of God here today in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I yield the rest of my time.
All right, thank you so much. Let me reset the timer. There we go. Aaron Amender, who wants to go first?
First
a
Amender.
Okay.
You got
I
it.
have a PowerPoint presentation, so allow me a moment to open that.
Okay.
Can we get your volume up? I can barely
Is-
hear you.
Is my volume too low?
Let me check here. One sec.
It should be good.
Yes.
It's not different for
There.
here.
No,
I'll have
we.
it play. All right, is that better?
Yeah, I had you were loud the last time, so I have moved.
Oh, you have me turned down? Okay.
We should. Yes.
All right, so
So whenever you're ready to share, let me know.
all right, hang tight. Slides. Okay. Share screen, share screen. It's going to be, assuming this is it. Do you see my screen?
Yes. Right. Give me
Is-
1 second. So I put the timer here. There you go. All right. Ready when you are.
Okay, the question is Christianity logical? This is an intro from First Amender, and you can find me on youtube.com/at First Amender. Consider a subscribe. Definitions. 1. Miracle, an event that is caused by a divine agent that is not reducible to known natural laws. 2. Work, energy transferred when a force causes an object to move, displace in the direction of that force. Keep in mind, when I am using the word work, I am referring to the physics definition, not the colloquial sense of the term work. 3. Logic, the study of correct reasoning. Logical reasoning aiming to arrive at a conclusion in a rigorous way. It happens at the form of arguments or inferences starting from a set of premises and reasoning to a conclusion supported by these premises. Syllogism 1. P1. If God performs miracles within space-time, those miracles must produce detectable physical effects, i.e. energy, transfers, or work. P2. All detectable physical effects involve energy transfers describable by physical laws or measurable deviations from them. P3. Extensive empirical investigation has found no verified instances of unexplained energy sources or law-violating work attributable to a divine agent. Examples. Conservation of energy experiments from the 18th to the 19th century. There's multiple of them, but here's 3. Émile du Châtelet in the 1740s performed an early formulation of energy conservation. James Joule of the 1840s performed a mechanical equivalent of heat. Hermann von Helmholtz in 1847 created a formal statement of energy conservation. Before such experiments were conducted, people believed in things such as vital forces, divine animation, and special life energies. Syllogism number 1 continued. P4. If an entity produces no detectable effects despite exhaustive investigation, there is no rational basis to affirm its existence as an active causal agent. Conclusion 1. Therefore, there is no rational basis to affirm that God acts within space-time. At bare minimum, God either does not exist within space-time or exists but never acts, which collapses miracle claims. Syllogism 2. God outside space-time. Outside space-time. P5. Classical theism defines God as a personal agent who thinks, wills, intends, and cares about events. P6. Thinking, willing, intending, and caring require temporality, differentiation, and identity conditions. P7. Temporality, differentiation, and identity conditions require a space-time-like framework, or at minimum, structured relations to analogous to space-time. Premise 8. A being that exists entirely outside of space-time lacks the necessary conditions for agency, intention, or personhood. Conclusion 2. Therefore, a spaceless and timeless entity cannot be a personal God of Christianity. No first cause gods. P9. Either God acts within space-time or exists entirely outside space-time. Conclusion 3. If God acts within space-time, there is no evidence of such action. C1. Conclusion 4. If God exists entirely outside of space-time, it cannot possess the attributes required to be a personal God. C2. A spaceless, timeless entity cannot be the personal God of Christianity. Therefore, no God possessing the attributes claimed by classical theism exists either within space-time or beyond it. Christianity is not logical. It has to eschew logic in order to remain cogent. Thank you. You can follow me for more woke content here. YouTube.com/@First Amender. Thank you.
All right, so it's me now.
Yes. Give me 1 second. You don't have to share your screen, so we're going.
Yeah.
Here
So I'm just
and here. All right. Let me reset and ready when you are. Sorry.
okay. Asking whether Christianity is logical is not the same as asking whether it is rational. And I was told that I need to address this because some people will be confused. A rational position is one that is based on reason or logic. And having the capacity to reason means being willing and able to evaluate the facts and evidence in a logically consistent manner. Having sound reason means being objective, able to distinguish reasoned thought from subjective impressions or intuition on emotional biases, biases. And being logical means drawing sound and sensible conclusions based on natural facts. Christianity doesn't do any of these things, and quite the opposite, in fact. Christianity is a religious faith, and reason is the opposite of faith. One could fairly say that religious faith is an unreasonable position, assumed without reason and defended against all reason, and that religious believers are not amenable to reason, refusing to be reasoned with. They certainly don't have good reason, because they can never cite any evidence or arguments that are both objectively verifiable as accurate and that are also positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant with their supernatural assumptions over any more logical explanation. Whenever an irrational, illogical person would assume a supernatural occurrence, a rational person would say, no, there must be a logical explanation, implying, of course, that assuming the supernatural is illogical, not logical. And some Christians argue that God is the creator and basis of everything, and that logic comes from God, not God from logic. Remember that. However, that claim is itself illogical. It is the question-begging fallacy, which is ubiquitous in all religions, not just Christianity, all of them. It's the circular argument where the premise assumes the truth of an already assumed conclusion, a conclusion that must not be questioned and cannot be logically reached unless it is assumed at the onset. But when it comes to how we know things, then logic is the basis of all thought, and it must come before anything else, including God. But again, in their baseless question-begging assertion that logic comes from God, they have also admitted that God does not come from logic, and that part is demonstrable, because every logical fallacy has been used as an argument for God, and every argument for God is a logical fallacy. If you say, I know for a fact there's a God, no, you don't know that, because it's not a fact. That's the fallacy of projection, not to be confused with psychological projection, which is when Christians pretend as if the rejection of religious faith is a religious faith. They try to create the illusion of a false equivalence to evoke the tu quo qui fallacy, that you're just as bad as me, when really the believer is just projecting their own faults onto unbelievers, those who do not have faith. If you say that science can't explain everything, therefore God, that's the God of the gaps fallacy. And remember that logically, the burden of proof is always on the one making the positive claim. Hitchens' razor allows that whatever is asserted without evidence may be dismissed without evidence. If you want to add a God to our shared reality, then it is incumbent upon you to substantiate your claim. But since religious faith is unreasonable and irrational, it is also illogical. Having faith means never admitting when you're wrong, not even when it's already obvious to everyone, insisting instead that your empty, unsupported assertions should be accepted as true just because you said so, until or unless someone else can prove it wrong. That is the argument from ignorance fallacy. And expecting the atheist to prove that there is no God is not only asking us to prove a negative, which is another fallacy, it is also the fallacy of shifting the burden of proof. Religion requires illogical thinking. For example, the best syllogisms meant to promote religious belief begin with premises that are arbitrarily contrived and not even necessarily true, but even if they were, their conclusions are still non sequitur, like the Kalam cosmological argument. Or their arguments simply ignore important points that contradict it, like with Paley's watchmaker argument or Pascal's wager. Or they fail logically otherwise. Since a material universe must necessarily have material in it, then an argument for a necessary being would assume that dead, unconscious material is immaterial living consciousness. There's just no logic to any of that. And that's just for theism in general. Christianity itself has several more fallacious notions to it, making it even less logical, as we will surely see in a moment.
All right. Thank you so much for your introduction. Let me reset the timer for 1 hour open discussion. And what I will ask is if we can try to keep the interruptions to a minimum. I will leave you guys to chat. I'll try to intervene as least as possible, only if it gets out of hands with the interruptions. But I'll try to be hands off. People in the chat there, make sure to do the social thing is like, share, subscribe, and we'll get right on to the debate. All right, take it away.
Well, the first thing that I kind of wanted to say is that you used a pretty popular argument that I see. Actually, I'm pretty sure I've seen allegedly Ian use that exact argument that you made there, First Amender. When it came to the premise 3 of your first syllogism, where it says extensive empirical investigation has no verified instances of unexplained energy sources or law violating work attributed to a divine agent. I mean, wouldn't you say that that's probably presupposing the fact that the empirical method is the only way to determine any form of energy transfer?
You're muted.
You're muted.
We would observe work coming from some unknown source.
Mhm.
If there does exist miracles, we ought observe that. We've never observed that. It's never happened.
Okay. So if it's never happened, something, for example, if it's not verifiable empirically, how does that actually make that premise then logically follow? Like I said in my opening, I said that
the
something
problem is
empirically
that
verifiable.
you're coming to a conclusion that it must exist despite the fact that there's no evidence behind it. I could give you, for example, unfalsifiable experiments or an unfalsifiable statement, and in which case you would actually have no way to disprove me. For example, if I asked you, are there leprechauns? Do leprechauns exist? You would probably say no, right?
Yeah, I would ask for an argument as to how that would be the case. Sure.
Okay. So is it logical to presume that leprechauns exist?
Without an argument, no.
Okay. So you have an argument for the existence of God?
Correct.
Okay.
Would you like me to walk through it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This is the argument from divine conceptualism, and you can go ahead and tell me when you disagree.
Okay.
Premise 1 is that truths are propositions that correspond to reality. That would be my definitional premise.
And
Okay.
that, just to clarify, that would mean that when you say that something is the truth, you have to be able to show that it is true, correct? Because how else can you know if it corresponds with reality?
Mm-hmm.
There may be statements of things that are actual, but if you don't know that they're actual, then you can't. It may be true, but you don't know it. But until you know it, then you can't call it truth.
Yeah, it would depend on your criteria for how you come to the conclusion that something would be true.
I already have a question regarding your premise 1. You're saying truths are propositions that correspond to reality.
Mhm.
And we have no evidence of miracles having ever happened, ever, under any circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, I asked you
Thousands
the
of
thing
experiments.
regarding.
So hold on. You're saying truths are propositions that correspond to reality, but miracles in and of themselves don't correspond to reality.
I mean, you're saying that they don't correspond to reality because you're taking it from an empirical lens. That's the only reason why it wouldn't correspond to reality in your view.
Right? Where can we observe a miracle ever happening? Because when you're saying a miracle happened, what that shows is that something within our physical realm happened that is unexplained.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
That
it's
the
saying that it's
forces,
unexplained
there's work
empirically.
being
Sure.
done from some
Can I just offer a
unknown source.
contention that we're talking now about arguments for God. We're not discussing Christianity.
I mean, my argument would kind of lead into it, basically supposing that Christianity would be the God that we're talking about, but because he
Why
asked for
wouldn't we
an
assume that
argument.
it would be Hinduism or Sikhism?
Well, because if we go down to the parts here, like for example, in my conclusion, where it necessitates a necessary mind that grounds necessary truths, Hinduism and Sikhism don't actually make that claim about how God works.
That's another problem.
Well,
So then it
I've heard
wouldn't apply to
Hindus
them.
make that claim, And we could
You're-
also say the same about deists. So
Yeah,
I just
Hindus would ground everything in a polytheistic sense, and that the
Not
Brahman would
necessarily.
basically just be a generic
Not
understanding.
necessarily. The Bhakti Hindu, which are prominent in the United States, do it very differently. They're very much like American Protestants.
or
Mhm.
hell, I mean,
But-
you could look at there's multiple different religions that correspond with like a first cause mover. Like there's so
Yep.
many religions that show that, but for you, it's
I'm not doing a first
specifically
cause argument though.
it's I no, I'm saying that there's plenty of religion. I'm not saying you're arguing that. I'm saying that there's lots of religions that argue the very same thing that would, like, I could just posit whatever God I like. How do you logically come to the conclusion that it's specifically the Christian God?
Yeah, so if we're talking about like logicality, for example, if I were to finish the syllogism and then we got to the point where we say, okay, now what God,
We're
right,
already
would
stuck
then
on
conclude
P1.
The point is, it's irrelevant.
I mean, you haven't rejected P1.
God could
You
exist
just had a
or
question
not.
about P1.
God could exist or not, and it have no impact on whether Christianity is logical.
Okay. So the syllogism that I'm specifically trying to give is something that would then lead into that. That's what I'm trying to get through. And you didn't deny premise one, Amender. All you did was ask a question about it and
No,
then
I'm
referred it
saying
specifically to
you
miracles.
predict your
Do
own
you reject
premises.
premise one?
No, I don't reject premise one. I'm saying you have contradicted your own premise one. Let me ask you this. Do miracles happen?
Yes,
Do miracles affect physical reality?
they can. Yes.
Okay. And you state that truths are propositions that correspond to reality.
Say that again.
Your premise was truths are propositions that correspond to reality.
Yes.
So
Reality would be the physical world. So if
contradicting
miracles
yourself
affect the
there,
physical
right?
world, then
Because
it affects
He
reality.
Because a
doesn't
miracle
catch that he's
specifically-
contradicting himself.
he doesn't
He
you
doesn't-
can't
yeah,
catch
he
that.
doesn't get that you can't
Yeah, I'm not
say-
contradicting myself at all.
You can't say that miracles happen when you can't verify that miracles happen.
Yeah, so I just said that if you're taking reality to mean something that's empirically verified, then I just reject that that's what all reality is. Because
Wait,
then at that
you
point, any
argue
form of
that.
philosophy is
We
a
were
rejection.
talking
No, I
about
didn't.
truth. When
I'm
you-
not.
when
I'm
you
not.
can-
I'm not
when you
arguing
can
for
honestly
empiricism.
declare something to be the truth. You
No,
have
for
to be able
something
to
to
show
be the
that it is
truth.
true. You have to literally have to be able to show the truth of it.
Yeah, and if something's true, right, there's different ways in which something can be considered true rather than just empirical evidence.
Okay,
What
but
is
now he's
reality
made
to
the
you?
Like
statement
the
that
laws of
miracles
logic
happen.
themselves are not empirically verified, but we
What
still
is reality to you?
I mean, reality is it's kind of like a very brute definition. It's kind of just something that would be something that possesses substance or something that exists properly.
All right, Google definitions just simply states it's a world or state of things that actually exist as opposed to an idealistic or notional idea of them. Do you agree with
Okay.
that definition?
Yeah, I believe God actually exists. He's not just an idea. Correct.
Okay, wait, then you're begging the question.
How was that begging the
you.
question?
You
I
did
didn't.
the
I didn't.
exact
I didn't.
thing that
overlook
Aron
it.
Ra just said that you would do.
How did I beg the question again? Go ahead.
You presumed the existence of God prior to, you said God exists, therefore God must exist. Your statement,
No.
I said to you, I said, what is reality to you?
I haven't
And
even
then I
made the
said,
argument that God exists yet.
and I gave you a Google definition, which is the world or state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic notional idea of them. And then you say, well, God is reality
Yeah.
to me. Okay, so God exists, therefore God exists. It's
No,
totally
my premise
circular.
one didn't presuppose the existence of God yet at all. See, this argument is something that would be asking you a question. When I'm asking a premise, or when I'm giving a premise, I'm asking if you in your worldview agree with it. I'm not asking you whether or not to
agree with
accept
the
my
premise,
worldview of it.
but I can't go past the premise if you are contradicting your own premise.
I didn't, because I believe that in my own worldview that it does correspond to reality.
You
And-
That miracles
believe.
correspond to reality.
Okay.
And you also
Yeah,
believe
you guys
that-
believe things as well, so that's
I
irrelevant.
don't.
I mean,
So
you do.
no, I don't.
Yeah, you do.
No, I
You
don't.
believe that logic exists. Can you verify that empirically?
No.
So you
it's
believe
not,
it?
It's not a belief, because when we talk about believers and how believers identify as believers and how they identify belief, they use the word very differently than I normally would have. So if I were to say that I believe something, it means that this is what I think is most likely true or closest to the truth, but I don't know it because I can't show it. But believers use a very different context where they pretend they know things that no one even can know, and they're determined to make believe something that is not evidently true. So I do not make believe things that are not evidently true. I could say
Okay.
that I believe in the Constitution. If you want to go that way, I could do it, but that's a different context. That doesn't apply to what we're talking about now.
Oh, I know. So when I'm talking about like the topic that we were currently using, like logic, for example, you just said yourself that you can't empirically verify it. That would be evidence, right? So then, like, what would be the evidence that you would use then to determine that logic exists at all?
Because we have to, instead of using absolutes, we have to be provisional in our knowledge and understanding. So I don't.
Logic
Okay.
is logic is
So that justify what it
axiomatic.
is.
They're simply tools that we use to come to
It's just
predictive
self-evident.
outcomes about the world.
That would be just self-evident.
Yeah, it's an axiom. So
Okay. So what if I just say
that's
God
not
is an
like
axiom then?
I thought you weren't going to go into the precept stuff. I mean, are we going
Yeah,
into
divine
precept?
conceptualism is a form of it.
And
You
we're
know, but
still
I
off
once
topic.
again,
We're
yeah,
still
no,
not talking about Christianity.
exactly. And then that's the other. I mean, once again, I'm still stuck on your P1. You believe that miracles exist, even though miracles, by their very definition, does not correspond with reality. In order
In
to
my
have
own
a
worldview, they
miracle as
would.
to go against
But we're
reality,
not talking about worldview. We're talking about
Yeah, we are. Christianity is a worldview.
No, we're
we're
not.
saying
We're talking about
Christianity is a worldview.
we're
religion.
saying whether or not
Is it
Christianity is
logical?
logical.
You guys haven't addressed Christianity yet, either of you.
Yeah, I'm showing that it would be logical under these specific premises.
You're showing that under your worldview that you believe, and you're welcome to say what you believe. That's fine. But
That's
when you
called
make
God's
a
world.
statement of fact that miracles happen, well, then you are violating your own statement about truth. That you can't say something is the truth if you can't show the truth of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So within my own worldview, if I'm talking about something like, for example, miracles, I do believe that they are something that corresponds to reality within my worldview. So when I'm asking you a certain thing regarding a premise, that's me asking you that within your worldview, if
What is
you
a
agree with
miracle
this
to you?
But
a miracle would just be
let's not go down another rabbit hole.
Okay.
I'm not going to be arguing for within the confines of his belief perspective or whatever he was saying within his worldview. I would rather share the same reality with the other three of us and talk from that.
Okay. So what would that shared reality be?
Well, we were supposed to be talking about Christianity and whether it's logical, not all of this other that has nothing to do with either of those. And as I said, God could exist or not and have no impact over whether Christianity is logical.
Okay. So do you have anything that shows any form of the laws of logic being broken?
Well, certainly. I mean, how is it logical that, Jesus is the patriarch of this religion, if I'm understanding this correctly. So
The
how is
high
it
priest.
logical that Jesus discouraged divorce and forbade divorcees from ever getting remarried, yet Christians have a higher divorce rate than any other demographic?
I mean, just because of the fact that people fail to follow the worldview correctly doesn't mean the worldview is false.
But we're talking about the entire religion, right?
So as a part of Christianity,
I would say it depends on the denomination.
Isn't it true that I don't think it matters what denomination is in this specific context. People believe, people that believe in are Christian, they believe that Jesus resurrected, he died for our sins, and also Jesus is God. Would you agree with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because I got a lot of questions about that.
Okay, so Jesus resurrected. He resurrected 3 days after he died.
Mhm.
Okay, so the body would have had to have
It was actually a day and a
decayed.
half, but yeah.
The body would have had to have decayed, and so the oxygen, the nitrogen, the nutrients required for neurons to work and fire, has decayed to the point where now you have bacteria forming and things likely feasting on its body, fungus feasting on it and breaking down the natural matter and materia. And you're telling me that it is logical to presume that all of that was reversed via a miracle, which is something that doesn't correspond with reality ever. We've never observed that ever. It's logical to presume that this.
You think that something hasn't been
total reversal of
observed, it
entropy
doesn't
happened.
correspond? You think that something hasn't been observed and therefore it doesn't correspond to reality? That's your position?
Well, it specifically resists temporal understanding. Like we have never
Okay.
exhibited something reverse timing. That has never happened.
Well, we could
Nobody has
see
ever
somebody
jumped
in
up
a coma
like
state. We
after
could see
falling from a
somebody in
cliff,
coma
for
state
example.
that comes awake again. I don't want to argue this because I don't think that there was that event even ever happened, nor necessarily did.
Okay, I'm still waiting for like a law of logic that I asked is being broken here.
One, can we
Well, we
hear
were
from
talking about the
Anthony?
religion, right?
Yeah. So
And so that's
which
why I
law
brought
of
up
logic
why
does
that
miracles break?
particular religion goes against the patriarch, goes against the teachings of the patriarch.
People do, sure.
Yeah, people, the religion, which is what we're talking
Depends
about.
on the denomination.
Jesus was a guy, and so he said one thing, and the religion based on Jesus says something completely different. So thousands of different denominations, all violently conflicting with each other, killing each other in the name of turn the other cheek. That kind of thing. That's a logical contradiction.
So
how would it
people,
be,
so,
for
so
example?
people exercising the worldview incorrectly versus people that follow it correctly is a contradiction to the whole system. in
Okay,
your
so
view.
we're talking about like even the leaders of the whole religions, right? So
Again,
like
I'm
how is it
Eastern Orthodox, so I don't care about any other denomination.
okay, so how
I
is it
believe
logical? We're talking
Go
about
ahead.
like the entirety of Christianity here. Would you accept Catholicism as
No.
no? You don't accept Catholics as Christian. So you are already admitting that you're not the world's leading religion. Christianity has dropped down. The dominant faith in the world now is Islam.
Yeah, that can happen.
Okay.
Sure. What's
Yeah,
wrong with
because
that?
if Catholics, which represent more by themselves, that one denomination represents more than everybody else combined, every other denomination combined.
Okay.
So the top religion would be Islam. The second to that would be Hinduism. The third largest religion would be Catholicism, and then the fourth largest religion would be unless you want to say that Orthodoxy is separate from Protestants and all of that.
It
It
is.
is.
Okay, so it's even lower then. So you're down below the Sikhs.
Okay. So the amount of people that are part of a
Well, I guess
religion
we
you
have to
think makes it
define-
illogical?
But then we have to define what Christianity is.
Yeah, I already said that I'm Eastern Orthodox.
Okay, you are Eastern Orthodox. What is Christianity? We have to define what
Eastern
Christianity-
Orthodoxy.
Eastern Orthodoxy. Yeah.
That's it.
Only Eastern
Only, yeah.
Orthodox.
So
Correct.
nobody. So,
Is all-
so
is the only
Catholicism is not
Christian. The only
Christian.
Christianity.
Correct.
Yes.
Oh, all
They're
right, well,
they're only nominally Christian. Correct.
I think
Okay,
you're-
so I get
yeah.
the Jehovah's Witnesses. You
You're once-
dismiss them. The Mormons, you dismiss them. But I came from a Mormon family. They really thought they were Christian.
And by the
People
way,
can
he's
think all they
once
want.
again contradicting himself again,
Oh,
because
boy, wait,
I asked him
you
whether
can-
or
they
not
can
that
think-
Christians believe in the following, whether or not that Jesus had resurrected, and whether or not Jesus is God. And he said yes. And all of the denominations that Aron just spoke about are in fact Christians. And now he is contradicting himself, saying, oh, they are not actually really Christians.
It's worse than that.
How am I
Because the
contradicting
people-
myself if I don't
It's not a
believe that they're part of the
contradiction for us to
system
say that
anyway?
we believe
The
that.
people in my family who have
No contradiction.
have church memberships, who've been to the temple, who have offices in the temple, in the Mormon temple, right? They
Okay.
who believe they're Christian and have dedicated their lives entirely
Cool.
to their Christian faith. Well, they're not Christian, according to some guy from Eastern Orthodoxy.
I mean, it's not just according to me;
he's
it's
doing
according
the
to the historical
ultimate
church that
in the
existed
no
in the first
true
millennium.
Scotsman fallacy, which is
Yeah,
a
no,
fallacy.
that's not a no true
which is
Scotsman fallacy.
It is a no
illogical.
true Scotsman.
I know what that fallacy is, but the reason
And I
why
don't
it's
think
not
the audience does.
can I
Well,
make
you're
an argument or
dismissing all these
anything?
people who have dedicated their lives
What's going on?
One
to belief
second.
in
Hold
Christ,
on, Bryce.
and you're saying you're not
I
Christian.
would like to hear from Anthony because we haven't.
Yeah, you can take over for a little bit, Anthony. It's all good.
Sure. You said the question was about why it's not a no true Scotsman. To say that Eastern Orthodoxy are the only Christians, or is there something else that you'd like to address?
Well, I don't think that any of us would have been prepared to debate is Eastern Orthodoxy the only form of Christianity. I think that's a very different topic. When
Sure.
we're talking about Christianity, we are going to have to include Catholicism and Protestants and so on.
I don't think so
You can't
necessarily.
just if you want to change the entire debate topic to arguing about how logical Eastern Orthodoxy is, that's another matter. But we are talking about the entirety of Christianity, and you can't just by fiat exclude everybody.
Well, we do, because we do have different. I mean,
well,
gotta
we
be
do.
honest. We
Okay,
do.
it's not
Well,
fair.
because
It makes
there,
no
there are different
Yeah,
there are
we're gonna
different
do that.
there are different sort of metaphysical structures and metaphysical reasonings within Eastern Orthodoxy that entail different explanations or different formulations of certain
So then
things.
I need to be replaced by a Catholic priest or somebody like that, somebody that would say that you are in with the Mary worshiping pagans. I just need to go interdenominational. We can't talk about Christianity as a whole because there is no Christianity as a whole. There's just Eastern Orthodoxy.
That is Christianity as a whole. That's kind of the
It
whole
is
point.
Christianity as a whole. Yeah.
No. Once again, you've
No.
contradicted yourself. You're saying,
How did I do that again?
I said, do Christians believe that Jesus died, resurrected later, died for our sins, and is God? That is a Christian. You said yes. Now you're stating only Christians are Eastern Orthodox. Once again, you have
And
contradicted yourself.
we don't disagree.
Yeah, I
with
said
any
in
of
a
those
nominal
premises
sense,
either.
sure. I said Roman Catholics are nominal Christians. You know what I mean by that?
Nominal?
I said that earlier. Yes.
So you're saying like it
Meaning that
so
they
it
just
only
have that
exists
they
in
have the
name. So
name.
they're not really Christians. They only exist in name, but they don't have any real substance or power. So what is the real?
I have an
just out
argument
of
for that.
curiosity, it's a little bit of a misnomer. But what is exactly the real substance of Eastern Orthodoxy that is separate from the rest of Christianity that makes you think that that only the real Christians is Eastern Orthodox?
Do you want to do that, Anthony, or me?
I mean, I can go simply.
It's actually your
the
claim,
essence energy
Bryce. I would
distinction.
love to hear Bryce's claim on
All
that.
right, I'll answer this claim and then I'll have Anthony take over for a little bit because he hasn't gotten to talk much. But the reason why Eastern Orthodoxy would be considered that one true church that we're talking about is due to the fact that we can actually read the original Christians from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th century, etc., all the way to the Great Schism in 1054. And when you actually look at the theology, the soteriology, the ecclesiology, and all of the way that the church was actually set up, the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestant Church completely deviated from what the original church was. The Eastern Orthodox Church historically is the only church that was actually capable of providing the original faith, and we can actually read the people that believed in it in the 1st and 2nd century, and they do not
this
purport
very
to the
argument
same
from Catholics earlier today.
And if you want to talk about it like that, we can.
Based on what was founded on the Pentecost of 33 CE. Yeah, where they called it AD, of course.
Okay.
I mean, he argued once
And
again.
I've heard the same thing from Jehovah's Witnesses, that they're going back to the true faith that was somehow forgotten by every other denomination.
Yeah,
and
but they
then,
believe in a great apostasy theory, which is its own problem.
If you want to just look up, just be objective, right? I like to be able to look up the facts. How many denominations of Christianity are there? I'm looking at a pie chart that shows quite a few of them. And you know what? Yours is not on the list.
I mean, even if it's not something that's on the first list that you looked up on Google, then I mean, sure.
I think we're a little bit on the weeds on whether on the.
I don't think we're going to get any better because they've redefined what Christianity is to exclude everybody else, and only talk about Eastern Orthodoxy.
I understand. Maybe we can just grant them that position, and for the sake of argument.
I don't think I'm going to. I came to discuss Christianity as a whole, not just one denomination thereof.
And your argument of it being illogical.
We're talking about objectively verifiable data. So if we objectively verify the data, we will look up how many denominations of Christianity there are, and there are quite a few, and they include things that he said are not Christian by his fiat, but there's hundreds of millions of people who really believe they're Christian. They would argue this point with them. I'm not here to defend whether Catholics are Christian. I'm here to criticize Christianity for being illogical, and he's demonstrating how illogical it is.
I mean, me saying that there's only one understanding of Christianity doesn't make it illogical. Your whole entire argument about the Christianity being illogical is due to the fact that there's multiple denominations, which again, that doesn't actually show something being illogical in the first place. Because you're just saying that due to, because let me put it like this. If there was a worldview that did exist, that was true, any worldview, we're not even talking about Christianity. If there was any worldview that was true, do you believe that there would be false understandings of that belief at all?
Sure.
Okay, so does that make the entire belief false then, on its own?
No.
Then you just conceded your whole argument. Thank you, Anthony.
No, I didn't.
You can continue.
No, I didn't, because I would allow that there are plenty of people who take the same position as I do with regard to humanism, for example, or with regard to accepting evolution, even if they don't necessarily understand it. The fact that some people don't understand it doesn't disprove it, but it also doesn't mean that I can eliminate them as not being from my little tiny faction.
So
I mean, we don't necessarily eliminate them either. We just say that they're nominal. They're Christian in name alone.
Yeah, are they Christian then?
The differences.
So we're back to discussing Christianity as a whole.
So there are actually so many logical inconsistencies here, just from what Bryce had said, where he had stated, I asked him, hey, the only real Christians he's stating that the only real Christians are Eastern Orthodox. And I
Correct.
asked him, why is that the correct one, right? His answer was, the reason why Eastern Orthodoxy is the real church is because we can read the original Christians all the way back to the Great Schism. And when we look at everything, it deviated from what the church originally was. Even if
Exactly
I
what
presume that
Catholics
you
say.
did not make a no true Scotsman fallacy, which you did do, you also, once again, regarding the Great Schism, you're simply stating, I am correct because I looked at this evidence, and that means that I am correct and others are incorrect, as if the Catholic Church themselves did not also do the same thing, or that
Yeah, I
other
didn't
people
invent the
may not
argument.
have done the exact same thing. And so therefore, you're just assuming you're correct on the basis of the antecedent. You're affirming the consequent. It's not logical.
Yeah, just
Are the
because of the
are the
fact that I
writings of
affirm my position doesn't. Sorry, I'll say this real quick and you can go.
Alright.
Just because of the fact that I said that I have a certain position, that doesn't mean I invented that position. I didn't make up my own position of Christianity. So again, like if you want to go ahead and try to say that everyone is Christian, again, like yeah, sure. If every single denomination was somehow true regarding Christianity, I would honestly concede that then therefore
Do they
Christianity would
have
be
to be
illogical. But
true
that's not the
regarding
case.
Christianity, or are there criteria that one must meet in order to be Christian? The least of which being
There is
that they accept
criteria.
There-
Jesus
there's a
Christ
lot of
as their Lord
criteria.
and Savior.
Yeah, there's
There's a lot
criteria.
of
We can go
criteria.
through any of them if you would like, but
Yeah, so
I-
we go through
but-
the criteria. The general criteria for what is a Christian applies to all these different denominations that you've
Yeah,
excluded.
the general criteria
Mhm.
is be baptized within the Eastern Orthodox Church. Simple as.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm sure that
yeah,
every
yeah,
Mormon
I'll
ever
give
lived
you
will agree with that.
I'll give you a better one. I'll give you a better one to make the
what-
debate. I'll give you a better one to make the
once
debate
again,
just a
affirming
little
the
bit.
consequent. Total logical fallacy.
All right, let me give you a criteria that may be easier for us to
But you
actually
can't
have
just
a
walk away
discussion.
from that. That is a logical
Again,
Is it
fallacy.
another one that
No,
is
it's not.
exclude vast swaths of people?
Say again.
Is it another one that is going to exclude vast swaths of people?
Well, the criteria that we do generally attribute is somebody who actually affirms the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed that was defined in 381 AD.
I tried to use that argument before, and somebody, and a Christian, criticized me for it, saying that not every denomination adheres to the Nicene Creed. I would have thought
Then
that,
they're not
I
Christian.
would have brought that up
Which
first.
means they're not Christian. Yeah.
Yeah, had
means they're
people
not
not
Christian.
already brought it against me. But what I wanted to talk about is we're talking about only about Christianity, and even if we ignore everybody else and only talk about your little group, there's still huge inconsistencies that make no logical sense.
Go on.
What, for example, is the reason for Jesus to anything? Help me with that.
Go ahead, Anthony. You can go, Anthony.
The reason to Jesus for anything.
What's the reason
I mean,
for Jesus?
I even mentioned it in my opening statement. The total reconciliation of man to God.
Why did we need a reconciliation to man from man to God? And wouldn't that mean that Jesus? Are we taking literal everything that's in the gospel? Do you have your own set of apocrypha that I don't know about?
Not in the New Testament, no.
Okay. So, but when we're talking about Jesus, then Jesus describes himself as existing before all of these other people do. He
Yep.
is a product of God, but
Not a product of God.
Jesus always only ever described himself as subordinate to God, separate
Nope.
from God, that God was someone else, somewhere else, who knew
Uh,
things Jesus didn't know, which is important, and could do things Jesus
Nope.
didn't do. But the important thing is that Jesus now pre-exists all of these other people. He doesn't pre-exist God, nor is he God, but Jesus has to exist to reconcile a thing that hasn't happened yet that God would have had to have known about, right?
So first off, Jesus is God, and Jesus does actually say that him and the Father
Jesus
are one.
disagrees with you.
Yeah, he says that he and the Father are one.
Yeah, then later he asks
Yeah, and then he says
someone
that the
else,
Father
not
is
him.
greater
He
than him.
prays to someone who is not him, asking, Father, who is not me, can my disciples be one with you just as I am one with you? And so they can be one with me and we can all be one with you, which proves that Jesus is not one with God in the way that you're saying.
So what do you know about the person-nature distinction?
I'm not sure where you're going with that.
Okay, so basically, Christ, or the Son of God, the second person of the Godhead, is of one nature with the Father, as
Mhm.
he's also in one nature with all of mankind. So he's saying that the apostles should be one with him
Mhm.
in nature by
Well,
participation, by
in
grace.
mission, more or less.
Hmm?
They've got the same goal.
Well, no, like the same nature. Like Christ is human nature, and
Except
as
that
all
why does Jesus pray to himself when he's not talking to himself? He's
he's
talking to
not
somebody else.
he's not praying to
Why does
himself.
God show up and say, "This is my son in whom I am very proud"? And then the Holy Ghost shows up, who is also Jesus, apparently, and
It's
shows
called
Jesus,
energetic. It's called an
leads
energetic
Jesus off to
manifestation.
someplace Jesus didn't know. We've
It's
got
called
three
an
characters-
energetic manifestation.
we got three
It's-
characters who don't know the same things that the other two do.
That's also false. We do not affirm agnuite, or the idea that the Son doesn't know the same things as the Father. Or the Holy
Father,
Spirit.
take this cup away from me, not because I will it, but because you will it. There's Jesus again, distinguishing himself from God, identifying that he is not God.
No,
He,
that's
and
not
he
the
always
case.
tells people that that he's
So
got the same mission as God, but God knows things he doesn't, and so on.
we affirm
Anthony.
something called dioteletism or dioenergism. So when we say that Christ has a human will, he also has a divine will. So he says things.
Jesus is his own Father. Jesus is God.
No.
Even though God says that there is no one sitting to the right of him, and then Jesus comes along and says, I sit at the right hand of power. Despite all these
After the
contradictions,
ascension.
Mind you, an energetic manifestation that would exist empirically. That could be proven empirically because energy in effect can be measured in terms of work.
so
It
you're
did
telling
come down
me
to
that,
God.
that Jesus
What do you think we
is
mean when we
God,
say energetic
and therefore
manifestation?
Jesus existed
I don't know, some fucking
before
magic
the
bullshit.
fall.
That's what
But
I
the
think it
reason
means.
Jesus exists is for the reconciliation of people with not Jesus, but with God.
Let me try this. Okay, so first off, like when I want to address Amender, where he said the energy thing would be empirically verified. It's specifically in the scriptures, it says that the Holy Spirit descended like a dove. So obviously, in some way, shape, or form, he took on some kind of physical matter in order to do that. So that's not even an issue with that.
I wouldn't even interpret it that way. Descended like a dove. Doves descend. Other things descend. It doesn't necessarily mean he's physical.
Okay, so just because of if God takes on some kind of matter in some way, shape, or form to reveal himself, that's like kind of the entire point of the incarnation. But back to what you said regarding Jesus never claimed to be God. Again, we can look at a bunch of different verses that actually completely contradict your argument that you're attempting to make.
I don't think,
for example,
I've talked to an awful
I
lot
can.
of biblical scholars about this.
Let me go ahead and do this, and I want you to try to tell me what you think this is saying. In John chapter 8, verses 56 through 58, it says, the Jews then said, Jesus said, your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. In verse 57, the Jews then said, you are not even 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham. And verse 58, he says, very truly I say to you, Jesus answered, before Abraham was, I am.
Yep.
Who is he claiming to be there?
I don't remember the translation between I think it was the Greek.
Ego eimi.
Yeah. And I remember reading from or listening to the lecture by a Bible scholar where it's talking about in the translation, it does not mean what people assume that it means. He doesn't literally say before Abraham was, I am. He said it's a translation error.
Okay, who says it's a translation error?
Yeah, is that a translation error?
It was Dan McClellan.
Dan McClellan said it's a, well, first off, Dan McClellan is a Mormon, so of course he's going to interpret it that way. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
And then second off, when he says it's not a no true Scotsman, if there's a worldview that exists and people get things wrong, people are capable of getting things wrong in any form of worldview.
Matter.
Specifically in the verse, where it says before,
is whether or not Christianity is true or false.
No.
The question is whether or not it's logical.
We're talking about also in this case, we're talking about how you translate Koine Greek. And
they're both losing it, bro. They're both losing it. Can I speak?
Hold on 1 second.
Oh,
Go
my
ahead,
goodness.
finish up, Bryce.
Thank you. So specifically when he says before Abraham was, I am, the question that was asked right prior to that was, you are not even 50 years old. How have you seen Abraham? And he said before Abraham was, I am. He's specifically quoting Exodus 3:14, where Moses asked, what is your name?
That way, interpreted that way, but apparently not intended that way. And
So,
that's also
explain verse 57.
The only strained interpretation you can make for this. In every other instance, it's very clear that Jesus distinguishes himself from God, even talks to God as a separate person, has to ask God things and then God says no. So
about
Jesus
Jesus?
is not the same person as El Allah Abba Yahweh Adonai.
Yeah, so just because of the fact that Jesus within his human nature does things like pray to the Father doesn't mean that then he in of himself is not God.
Wait,
Because
he's
like
praying to
Anthony said
himself?
earlier, no, he'd be praying to the divine nature, which is not the same thing.
So when he says, "Take this cup away, not because I will, but because you will," he's calling to the
'Cause-
he's not calling to El, he's not calling to Abba, he's not calling
Attributing
to
to the divine
Jehovah.
nature.
He's calling to the divine nature, which is not.
I said that he would be calling
Yahweh?
to the divine nature because of the fact that Jesus possesses two wills. He has a
And the
human will
divine
and a
nature
divine
that
will.
he's praying to. Would this be the same God that the Jews worship, Yahweh?
Yeah, but as a human, of course, Jesus would perform these actions because all flesh is subject to the Father.
Okay, and the Father also assumed flesh a number of times in the
No.
Hebrew Bible.
No, he
No.
didn't.
Yes, he did.
Not in a single. No, he didn't. Not a single spot.
yes,
Show
he
me a
did.
verse. Book, chapter,
Well,
verse.
when he invited Moses and the 70 elders and such to look at his
Hmm.
physical body, where his feet were on the lazalep.
That was
lapis lazuli.
Jesus. That
What?
wasn't the
No, that
Father.
wasn't
That was Jesus. It
That
doesn't.
was-
It
Jews
doesn't
wrote
say it was
that.
the Father.
Jews don't believe in Jesus.
So we,
Okay,
we
just
No.
because Jews don't believe in Jesus
Jesus-
doesn't mean that my view is false.
so
And God
we-
How
also
that works.
said that he had to turn his head and hold his head up because no man can look at my face and live. So not Jesus. We're talking about a different God here.
No,
That still
talking
doesn't.
about
give
that's
you
Jesus
a lot of
specifically stating
questions.
specific.
The
When it
purpose
says that no one
of
can see my
Jesus-
face, that's referring to the divine nature. Nobody can actually witness the divine nature.
And then you're
So-
saying that Jesus just revealed himself because it was God who was revealing himself, and now you've just taken the Jewish Jehovah or Jewish Yahweh and made him into Jesus for the same
What?
reason that you made all of these other denominations not Christian. But the
Why was that to do with what I just
I'll
said?
the question: what was the purpose of Jesus? Now you're telling me that Jesus pre-existed everything, which means he pre-existed the fall, which means he was created as a reconciliation for a thing
Christ
that
is
never
not created.
hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, John
Right.
1:3 explicitly states that Jesus was not created.
I mean,
so I mean,
like,
I don't really know
despite
what
the
you mean
fact
by
that it's, I mean, just like off
You're
of
not
its
getting the
face
question.
value,
Why does
God,
Jesus exist? You said Jesus existed because he was a reconciliation for man back to God.
That's not why he exists.
At
He
the
doesn't
incarnation-
exist
Right,
only
change
because
your answer.
I mean, what? I don't think that's what Anthony said. He didn't say that he only exists because of the fact that he's a reconciliation of man. That is something that he
I
performed.
asked what does
That
the
doesn't mean
purpose-
that that's the point of it.
why
The
does
purpose
he-
for Jesus to us is to reconcile us, not literally for his own
so
existence.
Jesus, who is God and therefore created the universe before he created us, before there was a fall, pre-existed himself to reconcile us to him when he
pre-existed
set
his
up
human
the
nature.
thing so that we would fall.
yeah, I mean, it's the classic question is God had sacrificed himself to save us from himself. It's obviously like like it is very illogical to think, but without me getting too deep into the weeds, the problem so far is the fact of the question is Christianity logical? As in formally, can we say that the tenets of Christianity or just Christianity in general being logical? I would imagine it is probably illogical to commit informal fallacies. You committed fallacies of affirming the consequence as well as no true Scotsman fallacies in your very strange Eastern Orthodox basis. You also contradicted your very definitions in a premise that you made stating that truths are the proposition that correspond to reality, but also that miracles happen, specifically things that do not correspond with reality. Why don't you help me out with that?
Yeah, my premise was something asking if you agreed with it, not whether or not my position is already presupposed. So can you tell me how I made a logical
All right.
fallacy there with that?
So
We're
once
getting
again,
back to the other
truths
argument
are
on whether
propositions.
Yeah,
there's God and
you're just
not whether
repeating yourself. You're
Christianity
not
is
addressing what I just asked. I asked a
because,
specific
because
question.
you're not understanding. You're not understanding at all.
I'm
why-
understanding. I'm asking how I
why
actually
you're-
fall into
you're
a fallacy.
contradicting
Not.
yourself.
I'm asking how I actually fall
hold
into
on.
the fallacy
So-
if my
so
premise
what
is asking
happens
you.
if something is the opposite of a truth? A truth is a proposition that corresponds to reality. An untruth is something that does not correspond with reality, right?
Untruth and untruth.
Yes, something that is not true
A
is something
falsity.
that doesn't correspond to reality, correct?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Do miracles correspond with reality?
Yes.
Yes.
So therefore, what? The very basis of miracles is
there.
that they're untrue.
Yeah,
According
don't
Again,
to
like
you.
you
Yes,
think
it-
that, no. If miracles, I believe that the miracles do correspond with reality. I'm still waiting
All
for
right.
like where that's logically
So,
like
so
not the
a
case.
miracle is a surprising or welcome event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws and therefore is considered to be the work of divine agency. Do you agree with that?
Sure, that's fine. We can go with that.
Okay. So that would mean it is not explicable by natural or scientific laws. That means it does not correspond with reality by its very definition of a miracle.
You think that if
miracles and
something is
magic
not
share the same
empirically,
definition.
Amender, do you think that if things are not empirically verified, that then therefore they don't correspond to reality
No.
at all?
It's the assertion about them. This is why I mentioned before, when you want to use the word truth, we can't just talk about the actual. If you want to say something, you want to claim something to be the truth, you have to be able to show the truth of it. You have to be able to show that it is true. If you can't show
Okay.
that it is true, you can't call it truth.
Okay, and you admitted earlier that things can be true without being empirically verified.
That's true. They can be, but we can't
That's what we're trying
call
to
it truth until we know that it is.
Okay.
What does that even mean, dude?
If you
You
don't
just- you
know
just-
it,
that's a-
if
that's a
you can't
tautology.
show it, then you don't know it. You have to be able to verify it. Show the
Show it
truth.
what way?
Show the
Show it
evidence
what-
backing that conclusion.
What
As
way do I show
I'm
it?
always saying, I'm probably going to have this on my headstone if I were ever to have a headstone. The truth is what the facts are, what we can show to be true, not whatever else we might assume or imagine beyond or instead of that, which is the realm of religion.
Okay,
Correct.
so I'll address that real quick, and then I'll pass it over to Anthony. When you said that things need to be shown as true,
If
otherwise
you're
they're
going to call them
not.
truth,
Okay, they have to be shown as true.
yeah, you can't claim it
Okay.
truth if you can't show the truth of it. The
Okay,
evidence-
cool. And you admitted that not all truths are empirically verified.
That's not what I said.
That
I
is
said
exactly what you
There-
just said
no, it's
2
not. I
minutes
said
ago.
there are things that may be true and we don't know them, and so that for that reason we cannot call them truth.
Talking about like things that we use in abstract, like for example, things like logic and mathematics, etc.
There could be things that we accept as true.
But they aren't objectively true. Math isn't objectively true to you.
Yeah, of course. What are we
But how do
talking
you
about?
empirically verify that?
We're talking about
No,
things that
math
we
is
can,
not
we can
objectively.
show the truth of it, and now
Math
you're
isn't
talking about things
objective.
that we can absolutely prove. Yeah, math is one of those things we can show the truth of. Religion is one of those things where they just use the word truth for what is nothing more than a pack of lies.
So I'll just say the thing about math real quick. When you said math, right? Yeah. How do you empirically verify math?
It's predictive outcome.
Again, empirically, yeah. Predictive outcome, by the way, is not something within empiricism. That's something regarding physical evidence. How do you have
But you
physical
do,
evidence?
but it is an
Again,
observation.
We're talking about Christianity, and you never got
Okay.
to my question
All right,
about
Anthony, you
why
can go ahead.
Jesus exists. So you're
You can go
telling
ahead,
me that Jesus existed before the universe began, but the purpose of his existence is to be a reconciliation for humans back to God, who is also Jesus, because Jesus is God and Jesus pre-existed a need for a reconciliation. Why would we need a reconciliation?
So
Tell me that.
I mean, I'll start first that there are two natures in Christ. He's not just like a single nature after the incarnation. Before the incarnation, he was fully God. Like we can very clearly say that that Christ is God before the incarnation. He didn't have a human nature, but his purpose for enacting the incarnation was to take on the human nature for the complete reconciliation of mankind to God.
So Jesus's purpose for
At
his
the incarnation.
existence is a
No,
reconciliation.
not existence at the
Okay, well, that was
incarnation.
why I asked. Why does Jesus need to exist at all?
Like in what sense? Like as a divine person, or as a divine person with a human nature?
Well, Christianity, I thought, was this belief that there's this guy, Jesus, who died for your sins. However, that's supposed to make sense. And I'm told that Jesus defeated death 2,000 years ago when he was
Mhm.
killed. And I don't know how he defeated death. I'd like some explanation for how
Right.
death has been defeated, because it looks to me like people still die. And
By
I'm betting
assuming it and then
I'm betting
resurrecting
that
him.
before he died, that people died, and then according to much of the Hebrew Bible, it says that they didn't exist anymore, that they die and they just don't exist. Period.
When we
And
say
now
that
we have
Christ,
Jesus
when we say that
presenting a
Christ
completely
defeated
different.
death, when we
What?
say that Christ defeated death, We talk
Yeah.
about how Christ took on humanity and voluntarily endured death, and then by his resurrection, he defeated death so that mankind may be able to participate in that willingly.
How?
Despite the fact that
Essentially-
logically that's a total reversal of entropy, completely reversing all basis of logic, all temporal understanding. We now have to render every single experiment effectively potentially falsified because it is possible for God to reverse entropy in the universe, which, by the way, thankfully,
you define
has
entropy
never
for me
been
real quick, Amender?
reproduced.
Can
Entropy
you
is going from higher energy states to lower energy states.
No, it is not.
But again,
it's actually
we're
not.
talking
That's
about-
not what entropy is.
We're talking about a God who dies, and not like Prometheus. Prometheus did a much better job. Got crucified for 10,000 years on a rock. Never died because gods don't die. But this God died, and he spent a day and a half, which they call 3 days. He spent a day and a half in his own winter home, apparently, because he runs hell, according to what all the Christians tell me. So big whoop. Jesus gave up his weekend for you. What exactly did Jesus' death do? So how are people before Jesus died? When they die, how is it different than people after Jesus when they die?
Well, he took himself to save himself from himself.
If God was one person, that would make sense, Amender, but that's not how God works.
I mean, I'm just saying that's
Then
what
why don't
happened,
you give
right?
me an answer, please?
Like about death. So all people, past, present, and future, who will die or have died, still participate in the saving reality of the resurrection.
Wait, how? The people who died before Jesus died participate in a reality of his resurrection that hadn't happened yet, even though they don't exist
Once it
anymore?
happens, we don't say that they cease existing after death.
Okay, so what does it mean when Jesus says that if and only if you believe in me, then you will never die? But if you don't believe in me, then the wages of sin is death, right? So if you don't believe in Jesus, you die. If you do believe in Jesus, you don't die. You die, but you don't. You die, but you don't
Also,
die.
you go to hell unless if you're an Eastern Orthodox,
It's
specifically
a
Eastern
sense of
Orthodox,
what
as
the
per
word
the
death means in this
schism
case.
and the Nicene Creed, right?
I'm trying to get them to answer.
I'm still waiting. Which
It's a
part
question of what you
regarding
mean
the
by death.
defeating of death? You're talking about the
what does
defeating
it
of
mean
death
to defeat-
situation?
How the people who died before Jesus spent his weekend in hell? How was their deaths different than people who died after Jesus?
Yeah, it says in the epistle of Peter that the reason why Jesus spent that time in hell in the first place is to preach to the souls who were sitting there, because those people
What
died
good
in
is it
pre-incarnation.
to preach to people who are already dead?
Because those people still possess their spirit when they're in hell, and they're capable of listening.
Wait, so we can be in hell. We die and we're in hell, and then we can be saved.
What
Well,
do you
Hades
think you
is
think
not the
hell
same
is?
thing as eternal hellfire that's defined in Revelation.
Okay, so when Jesus creates himself, I guess, so that he can be a reconciliation of human to man, because of a fall that hasn't happened yet, Jesus created himself to reconcile from a fall that he knew would happen, but that hadn't happened. And so he also created hell so that he could punish people who haven't fallen yet, but he knew was going to fall because he set up the trap and baited it and everything. So what are we being saved from?
Hell doesn't exist yet. Gehenna doesn't exist yet.
There's a difference between Hades when it comes to being outside of Abraham's bosom, as it says specifically in the scriptures, versus actually the eternal hellfire that's defined in Revelation on the last day. That's not
All
the
right,
same
so
thing.
Once
when
again,
Jesus
can't be
talks
shown to
about-
exist in any way, shape, or form, right?
When
Like,
Jesus
Yeah,
talks
sure. If you
about-
want to say
like,
empirically
written down.
verified, sure. But again, that doesn't make it illogical. I'm still waiting for any argument of Christianity being illogical.
well, the fact that
based
you
off of
That's what
committed
I'm trying to
multiple
get at,
fallacies in
just
order to
to
solidify your
you
argument.
still haven't actually shown how I made those
I did.
fallacies.
I actually
because I
pointed out
refuted
three of them.
your accusations that you made already, and it seems like you were
Yeah,
tracking.
no,
them.
it's
So-
you saying "nuh-uh" is not an argument. I'm
So
I
sorry.
didn't say no.
when did hell
Okay,
come
hold
down?
on, wait. Amender, can you steelman my argument that I gave you, please?
I have no idea. A lot of the
'Cause-
times when a lot of these crazy freaking Catholics come in, I sit here and I hear concepts like, like, oh, if we doesn't logically disprove the fallibility of a Christian God, therefore is Christianity, or stating like ridiculous things like, oh, he chooses not to destroy, presuming the existence of a God to begin with. It goes in circles, man, and it doesn't have any logic.
I'm just glad that you admitted that you didn't understand my argument. So that's
I
fine with me.
understood your. Then
please
it's total
explain it to me.
nonsense.
Explain it to me then
if
if you
I'm
understand
sure
it.
if I talk of the horse, donkey, monkey, pig, and how it like played chess with the water, I'm sure that would be, hey, could you just reframe my argument for me? And then you'd be like, I have no idea what the fuck you said. That doesn't make it magically logical.
You said you understood my argument, so I'm asking you to
Jesus
just please
Christ.
define it for me. Do you have anything?
Yeah.
So
Can you explain anything about my
seem
argument?
to argue your concept of defying conceptualism. You were.
I haven't even gotten to do that
your
yet.
initial. Yeah, you were trying to argue your P1, which, by the way, you contradicted yourself in P1.
No, I
stating
didn't.
truths
You
or
still haven't shown
propositions
that.
that correspond to reality. Well, it does
How
because
did I
you said
contradict?
miracles
It's a one
happen.
premise.
Miracles,
It's one premise.
by
How
their
did
very
I contradict?
definition,
How did I
you
contradict myself with
contradicted
one
it
premise?
based on a previous statement you said. You can say a premise that is the opposite of something that you had said
Can you
prior.
please show how
Now
it
we
was a
contradict
contradiction?
it.
You're
you
also
show how I
assuming the
Oh, Jesus
definition
Christ.
of reality
You
by saying
said
that you made a contradiction.
miracles happen, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, and a miracle is something that it doesn't correspond with physical
I
reality.
reject that.
And you stated
You know
truths
that
or
I didn't say that.
You reject that? Then what the fuck is a miracle to you? Is it something that can be entirely empirically verified? It can be it can be sourced to natural causes entirely?
Just because something isn't sourced to natural causes doesn't mean that there's not natural causes involved in a miracle.
Okay, so
Yeah. So
There's a difference between a cause and effect, by the way.
yeah, I would still like to get back on topic.
That's fine.
Because we've got where we talk about how Jesus is God because he said this phrase translated in the Greek, which was interpreted this weird way, and that's the only thing that supports this one position, where all of the other things he said contradict that. And then we also have to ignore where Jesus said that the Pharisees were all serpents, or that they were all vipers, and that they were all the sons of Satan, when I guess he wasn't being literal then. Well, maybe he wasn't being literal this other time either. I don't want to go over all this. I want to talk about the sum of Christianity, where Jesus exists to reconcile us back with God, and hell exists, but not yet. So apparently hell didn't exist yet when Jesus threatened to crush the unbelievers in a bloody wine press and have the rivers of blood up to a horse's bridle for anybody who didn't believe. Did hell exist yet when Jesus allegedly said that?
Do you know what we mean when we say hell? Like, do you know what our understanding of?
Can you
hell
answer
and
my
yes
question
is?
before giving me your interpretation?
Well, no, it's a question of if you're actually critiquing our position or not,
Well, I still need the answer to my question.
and that's going to depend on how you see our
Did
position.
the thing that you're going to describe as hell already exist when Jesus allegedly said that?
I mean, in a sense,
Which verse are you talking about?
You guys should be in politics.
Which verse are you actually talking
great
about?
political answer right there.
Okay,
verse are you
what
actually
is
talking
hell
about?
then, according to you?
hell is to experience the divine energies of God and not be receptive to it.
I'm sorry.
Hell
What?
is the
The absence of
experience
God.
of the energies of God and not receiving it or hating it
Experiencing the energies of God.
and hating it.
Let me put it like this, right? So
It's
we
not
all
the gnashing of teeth that Jesus said it was.
The gnashing of
That's
teeth is the
the-
hating it.
that's the hating it. Gnashing your teeth, you hate
There's
it.
no hellfire. There's no lake of fire. There's no eternal.
Not literally.
Not
We're
in a
being
literal
burned
sense.
forever.
Not in a literal sense. No, it's a spiritual state.
Okay, so we are deprived of our free will upon death.
No.
Well, I mean, what do you mean by that? Like, are you talking about like the ability to choose otherwise? Like when you say free
Well, I mean,
will,
you're
like
saying you're being
libertarians?
deprived of God and hating it. So you would have to take my free will away.
Well, actually, no. If we go back to the definition of free will that I gave earlier, the definition of free will that we use and understand is that free will is the voluntary activity of an agent according to their power.
Okay.
You're still
And you understand that the way philosophers approach this is slightly different. I mean that we can
So?
that we're so predictable in what it can be predetermined what choices we're going to make.
Passion has nothing to do with whether free will exists or not.
Well,
Free
yeah,
will
that's
has to do with
All right.
activity and not
All right,
passion.
we won't go there. Did hell, which is contradicted by what the Bible says about it, but you have a different interpretation. So your different interpretation of hell, did it exist already when Jesus said that he was going to crush the unbelievers in the bloody winepress?
When I said in a sense, I said in a sense because God's energies are ever existent. Like
So is
they're
that a
going to be
yes?
experienced. They're
or
going to
is
be
that a no?
experienced no matter. They're going to be experienced no matter what.
Okay,
But
so
the
hell
eschaton
did
has not
exist
happened yet.
when
What is
Jesus
energy?
said the thing about the bloody
Energy
winepress?
is second actuality. Energy is
So hell
energy
did
is
not
just sort of-
exist when Jesus said the thing about the bloody winepress?
I said hell exists in a sense that
In a
the energies
sense.
of God exist
When
and
did it
people react
start
to the
to
energies
exist
of
in a
God.
sense?
Hmm?
When did it start to exist in a sense?
All the time. God's energies are
Okay,
ever
so
present
hell
and,
always existed.
in the form of God's energies.
So hell existed before the alleged fall, which wasn't even a fall.
Because hell is the description of experiencing God's energies and hating it. I mean, it could be said that it didn't
Which
exist.
again,
It could be
was why I
said
would
that
have
it
to
didn't
take my
exist
free will
before the
away.
fall because man didn't have a gnomic will at
See, I
that
gotta
point.
tell you,
Experiencing the energy of God and therefore hating it, and then also at the same time the absence of God's energy somehow.
We don't
somehow.
say that.
Yeah, but it's not a
don't
logical
say that.
contradiction.
That
And it
that
has
doesn't
to be a
logically contradict,
reconciliation.
obviously, you know.
Hell
We
existed
just don't say that.
before God made his perfect creation. So
Because God's
God
energies
created
existed
hell
before
All right,
creation.
let me.
punish.
let-
Total nonsense.
Who's it going to
Can I
punish?
get? Can I kind of just give you like just the overall thing about it? Okay. So when we talk about hell, when it comes to like the actual finality of all
That is
things,
the
right?
thing we're supposed to be saved from, right? Just to be clear.
Yes,
Okay.
the actual eschaton, right? The ending of
I
what
like how
all
you
things
say
are going to be.
actual about something that's entirely mythical. But go
I
ahead.
said eschaton, by the way. I did not say actual. Anyway, the thing I'm talking about regarding hell is simply just all things come from God, all things eventually return to God. If you return to God in a sinful state, then you will then therefore hate the presence of God. God distributes his love to all things whatsoever, whether or not they are good or bad. If you are somebody who possesses a will that does not actually love God, or you do not understand the true love of God because you rejected him, then that would be hell when you experience God, because the true love of God is not something that you would actually like, and it would be eternal torment. It would be like a fire, as it says in Hebrews, and that fire is something that can either burn you or it could be like iron where you mold with it.
I
which is
understand
not
that
the
that's
same
what
thing.
you believe, but that doesn't really curtail as to whether or not Christianity is logical.
I'm still
And
waiting
it
for a
doesn't
single
make
argument of
any
that anyway.
sense either.
I've already
So the
presented
hell
multiple,
existed-
and you've contradicted yourself anytime you open your mouth.
You
The
haven't
hell
even let him
existed
give his
before there
argument.
were unbelievers, and it
I let him
existed
because his
exclusively
argument.
to punish unbelievers. Right?
Say again.
What
What'd
do
you
you
say?
Hell
think about
Sorry, go
that?
existed before there were unbelievers, and it exists exclusively to punish unbelievers. Right?
No, it exists because the energies have always existed. I mean, again, I could say that
It's
it
just
has
the presence of God
Yeah.
in a hateful, in a state where human beings hate it. I don't understand the problem.
Okay, let me try to explain it to you from the child's perspective. When I was 12, I remember reading the Bible, being utterly disgusted by it, because I was taught that that God was God was ultimate wisdom, and that God is love, and that when I read the Bible, that I'm going to be able to tap in to the greatest mind that ever existed. And of course, you don't get many pages into Genesis before you realize that these are the words of inferior people trying to justify their inhumanity toward their neighbors.
Is there
Like-
is there types of love that you think exist, like when it comes to like the way that people act towards each other, that may negatively impact people because of the way they reflect, or by the way they experience it?
No, there may be, and it's irrelevant to what we're talking about now, isn't
I
it?
mean, if you just accepted that, then you're basically saying that even if we say that God is love, if people experience God's love as negative, then that doesn't mean that then therefore it's contradictory.
If God is truth, then he's not going to lie constantly like he did in the Bible. If he had written
He didn't lie
it,
anywhere.
it was clear that God didn't write this. Excuse me, I've got something going on. I'm going to First Amender, you're going to have to take over for a moment.
You're good. Okay, so let me ask you this, just out of pure curiosity. Do you believe that plants came before the sun?
I mean, if you're talking about like the physical sun, sure.
you believe plants existed before the sun.
Yeah, when God said, "Let there be light," that was simply just him distributing his energies upon creation. So God
Well,
could have
so I
God could
could
have
give you
just
the specific
simply.
verses.
I know
It-
what you're talking about. I
okay,
didn't
so the
say no.
plants in the book, plants came before the sun. So in your mind, you believe plants came before the sun?
Yeah, God's energies would be able to sustain the plants without the actual physical sun existing. Sure.
And that makes logical sense to you.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be a sense about logic. I would say that maybe it
So
doesn't make empirical sense to you.
your logic is magic. So I could, for example, based
Can
on
you define magic?
based on your basis, I could justify that there exists right now that has been following you your entire life, a leprechaun. But as soon as you turn around, it disappears. As soon as you turn on a camera, it disappears. As soon as you have a mirror in front of you, it disappears. Any reflection, it disappears. And if there's another person in the room, it disappears. And if you put anything on the floor, it also disappears. That would be logical in your mind, right? Because in my mind, I believe that there could be a
No,
magical leprechaun. Why?
because there
Why
wouldn't
is
be a
that
logic. Because there
logical?
wouldn't be a logical argument for it actually being the case.
Why? Why?
What do you mean? Why? I just told you why.
I just posited the position, right? Show me
You
why
gave me
it
a
would not be
yeah.
logical,
You
completely
gave a
logical.
position. You gave
Where
a
do we
position,
see
but you didn't make an
plants?
argument for it.
Where do we see plants existing without photosynthesis? Where do you see that?
Yeah,
Just
again,
the
just because you
photosynthesis
can't
doesn't
see
actually
something, just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not the case. That's
Okay, so
ridiculous.
therefore a magical fucking leprechaun exists behind you. Holy
Yeah,
crap.
that's not me committing a fallacy there. I'm telling you that in my
No,
position
the
that
question isn't whether or
you're
not it's a
giving a
fallacy.
criteria from
The question isn't
empiricism.
whether or not that it's
You're
a
giving a
fallacy. The
critique
question
based
is
off
whether or
of
not
empiricism.
Christianity is illogical. You are literally
No,
saying
your
plants would
argument is
exist
based off of
prior to
empiricism
there
being the
being the
case.
existence of a sun, dude. Are you
Yep.
serious?
Your critique is based off of
Oh,
empirical verification, which has nothing to do with whether or
I
not
tried,
something
Aron.
actually
I
possesses
tried.
logicality.
Okay, so I'm sorry about that. There's something with the dogs making all kinds of noise, and there's nothing I can do about that from here. But hell,
Are we doing the next thing, or are we still talking about this? I saw that the timer ran out. So what do you want to do next?
Yes. If you want to keep it going,
I'm still to my first question. All right, never mind.
but we do have a bunch of questions, so we
Okay.
might spark some more conversation with that. I want to thank all of you for this debate. I know that we didn't talk about closings. Would you rather take 1 minute to do a short closing and then go to questions, or do questions and then closings?
I'd like
Yeah,
to
we
do
could
a
just-
closing. I wrote it.
Yeah, we could just do a little bit of a
Okay.
closing here and then do the questions.
Perfect. Let's do 2 minutes per side for closings. Closing remarks. Give me 1 second. Let me fix that. All right. And let's do that. Since you guys started, you guys can start the closings. So
I mean,
I'm in there.
All right. Logically speaking, it works as follows. I start by presuming that there could be a God, starting with the premise God can do miracles. What is a miracle? A surprising and welcoming event that is not explicable by natural or scientific laws and is therefore considered to be the work of a divine agent. It could be possible that God exists within our universe and therefore acts. The question becomes, what does this look like? You would be able to have some sort of energy source coming from some unknown source that is able to do work within our universe and that cannot be explained by a known source of energy, for instance. Thousands of experiments have been done to find this divine source of energy. To this day, we have not found a single definitive instance of an unknown source of energy capable of doing work. Ergo, if there is no evidence of its existence, despite our best efforts of looking, it doesn't exist until we can prove it exists. With knowledge that we have no real evidence of any independent energy source, at minimum, God does not influence himself in the universe in any way. So where else could God hide, knowing that he, quote unquote, does miracles? We could posit, for example, that God exists beyond space-time and that the first cause mover of the universe and has also presupposed the quote unquote energy required to enact all of their miracles deterministically as a first cause mover. How can I prove or disprove something that exists beyond space-time? For starters, God requires several anthropomorphisms to match the God that we know. For example, God cares about us. God thinks. God wills things into existence. God cares about what chemical waste rod goes into chemical waste holes, and it makes him very angry. God is a singular source, a whole body. Each of these descriptors are functional, providing provided that you have a space-time fabric to enable things like quarks and atoms to exist. Should there be no fabric of existence enabling things like objects or a singular source or temporal things such as thinking and willing, we cannot presume any of these things due to the lack of space-time. Whatever there, should that concept even be possible beyond space-time, would be wholly foreign to us as something that exists beyond any anthropomorphism. Even this is highly charitable because it presumes something like this could even be possible. But if we were to presume something exists beyond space-time, it would mean that it would likely lack just about any known anthropomorphization. For example, simply calling it a single source or a one will ensure some sort of encapsulation separate from the stuff of the rest of the plane. Yet this once again only works within space-time, given that there exist fundamental forces that enable objects to be separate from other things, enabling things to be separated. Ergo, at bare minimum, even being charitable, whatever is beyond space-time possesses no anthropomorphic structure whatsoever. It doesn't care, it doesn't think, it doesn't even know that we exist. It has no worry. It simply makes at least one universe. Would this be your God? I think not. And therefore, there is no God in and outside of space-time, and Christianity is illogical.
All right. You took a little bit of extra time, but I didn't want to cut
Sorry.
you off, so I'll
My
I'll
apologies.
give the same. It happens. It's okay. I'll give the same. I give 3 minutes to everyone else. Aaron, ready?
It's Aron, please.
Aaron,
Let
sorry.
the other guys go first. I'm going to see if I can get these dogs to shut up.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm mortified now. I don't do it on purpose. It's just my South American accent. Anthony, Bryce, who wants to go first?
I'll go ahead and go first.
You got it.
So based off of the debate that we had today, first off, I didn't see a single thing that actually was an argument against the logicality of God. I saw people actually applying a form of empirical critique against a view that does not obviously grant empiricism as the end all be all for all truth. And as we can see, our opponents even conceded multiple times that obviously empirical evidence does not actually determine all truth whatsoever. So it kind of contradicted the entire point that they were trying to make anyway. Another thing that happened as well is when they were talking about the miracles thing, they tried to say that I was contradicting myself because of the fact that I do believe myself that miracles do correspond to reality. I never said that they did not correspond to reality. You can play back the tape. Just because of the fact that the source for that miracle is not something that corresponds to physical reality, which is a different thing than if we're talking about something that would be existing outside of physical reality, then if something can still be affected, so the physical reality can still be affected by whatever that thing is. So again, there's a difference between cause and effect here, or the source and the effect from that source. Regarding Jesus being God, I mean, I didn't really specifically get too much into that when it came to the Bible, but the one verse that I specifically wanted to state specifically that it's pretty obvious that Jesus himself was not created, because we could see explicitly in John 1 verses 1 to 3, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and he was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that was made. The category of things that are made then therefore cannot be Jesus, because Jesus, everything was created through him. So then therefore Jesus could not have been created himself. It's very simple. And then obviously it says that that the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us, which is obviously denoting Jesus himself. And it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So obviously there's no issue with that. He's just simply taking a Muslim interpretation of the Bible, which is usual with atheists. And regarding, like I said, the logicality thing, like I said earlier, I didn't see an actual P and not P, because that's actually what a logical contradiction, because that's what they tried to make over and over is. I didn't see a single P and not P when it came to like our actual worldview. It also kind of sucks that it seems like they did absolutely no studying on their opponents in any way, shape, or form, considering that they knew absolutely nothing about Eastern Orthodoxy, to the degree where we had to basically teach them about it the entire debate. But I'm just going to yield the rest of my time on that. Thank you for doing this debate with me. It was enjoyable.
All right. Thank you so much. Anthony, ready? You are muted.
So I guess I'll start with the fact that neither of our arguments were actually addressed throughout the debate. Both my argument on the logicality by the defense against the Epicurean paradox, but also in the divine conceptualism argument, which was never actually able to be given. That started on premise one and then never was able to continue. And on everything else, we were able to completely demonstrate why it is logical, the things that we believe, and was actually able to give a full account of what we believe and how we believe it, and demonstrating that. As for that, I don't actually have anything else. I'll yield my time.
All right, no problem. Thank you so much, Anthony. And I'm going to say it wrong again. I'm so sorry. Aaron.
Arid, RN, registered nurse. So easy. So, what we really said about truth and empiricism was not that we can't use empiricism to define all truths or anything. That's not even the issue. That's not what we were saying. We were saying you can't call truth unless you know that it is true, because then you're just asserting baseless speculation as if it was a matter of fact, which is what all religions do. That's their fundamental logical failure. You assert baseless speculation as if it was a matter of fact. So God was with God, and Jesus is God's son, who was made before time began. So Jesus would have already pre-existed before the beginning of time, but Jesus is still God's son, and Jesus really does describe himself as subordinate to God over and over again. I know that you've got a different interpretation of it, but that's the case. So just like I said, Jesus would have said that he had pre-existed all of these people. And he told these people that, aren't you gods too? You're all gods. We're all gods. Yay, hey. But I wasn't invited to debate Eastern Orthodoxy. It didn't matter who the people were that I was debating. It didn't matter which denomination they were with. They were talking about Christianity as a whole. Yeah, we can debate that one. And unfortunately, I was never able to get into the topic of why Christianity is so grossly illogical, because everybody has a different direction. I was listening to the opening arguments. We're all talking past each other on completely different things. And I think everybody else is being irrelevant to the point that needs to be made. So I have to let it go there.
All right. Thank you so much for that. That was fun. We have questions. All right. Here we go. I'll try to... if you're going to send super chats or questions, try to be nice. Like, it's been fun. Then let's not sully it. How does Bryce have... Oh, my God. The first one. Worst hairline here. Love you, Bryce. Merry Christmas. I mean, no,
Well-
I mean, I don't
I
have
can
a
answer that.
hairline at all, so that has to be the worst, right?
Yeah. First off, I'm gonna have to say that I think that's crazy because the host himself has decided to not have a hairline at all.
At all,
But
yeah.
But to be fair, though, it makes it look like I'm lying because I'm trying to maintain the hair that I currently still have. But hey, I'm on minoxidil and finasteride now, so hopefully I get it back. But that's
So we got to do the trip to
yeah.
Turkey grift.
If
Shut up,
everything
bro. I'm not going to
fails,
take
yes,
a trip to Turkey.
Turkey or Brazil, both good destinations. Yeah, I inquired into that, but no way. It's way too much. Basil for $5. Thank you so much. Maybe one day you too can host your own debate con at a Holiday Inn in Montevideo. Thank you for believing in me. That gives me hope. Yes, we
Max,
can do
can
it.
I say so? I would love to see you host a quote unquote debate con, right? Because I
Oh
feel
my
like
God.
there would be a lot less Andrew Wilson ethnonat fans. Like it would just be a better place. It really would. I believe
I have
that.
2 words for you. And I'm sorry that I have to say
Not
it.
and yet.
Drugs and bitches. I mean, that's
There you
what
go.
it's all
We'll have
about.
blackjack and hookers. Sounds great.
Yes.
Smoky
Tim
Man
Davidson
bad.
for $5. Good news. We can save your snake, but he's never going to walk again. Oh my. Alex Medeiros, who is Wi-Fi Gospel. First Amender. Why are you being bad faith? P1 in Bryce's argument has nothing to do with miracles. That's a red herring. Engage with the argument.
It doesn't, but when you say one thing and then say the opposite as your premise, that's where your contradiction exists. You could contradict your premise by saying something prior that is opposite of your premise.
Is that a discuss? Are we just kind of like just doing the question
Yeah,
answer.
you
I'm
can,
okay
you
with
can
that.
talk. You can talk. You can talk. Go ahead. Yeah. It's
I don't
your-
want it to divulge into a complete other conversation, but I did say that miracles, in my view, correspond to reality. So I'm still trying to. I still don't see the issue with that. But that's just my response.
Because you can't show it.
Empirically,
Yeah. And I never said that you can demonstrate math empirically. Because I
So
also
then
am
it's
a
not true
rationalist,
with your
so
criteria.
I believe in reason and empiricism.
yeah. And the reason though would be something that's not empirical in of itself. And if
And
I
as
can,
I
if
also
I can make
said,
it,
it has to, our knowledge has to be provisional. I can weigh multiple hypotheses at once without necessarily committing to any of them. So I go with the best information and the most productive means.
By
As Hume
determining
said,
which one
we
is the
have no
best, right?
choice but to accept
I
that
read
there is
David
an
Hume.
external reality, because we would have to make the same assumption as a baby or a beast would.
Yeah, I read a little bit of
Alright.
David Hume.
Basil for $5. Thank you so much. Do the Eastern Orthodox panelists believe that the bread and wine become the body and blood of Jesus during their mass equivalent?
You want to take that, Anthony? No, I can just
Sure.
add on to it.
Yeah, I mean, we believe that the bread and wine become the body and blood energetically, as in it's a participation in the life, death, and resurrection of Christ, and ascension and sitting at the right hand of the Father.
I wish
Yeah, we don't
talk
believe in
about that.
the.
That was the topic. We were supposed to address that. Never got to it.
Yeah, we don't believe in the Eucharistic miracles, like in terms of like the way that the Roman Catholic Church purports them, like them turning into like physical blood and physical flesh and things like that. We think
I
that
don't
that's
care
actually
about that. I
pretty
was talking
weird.
about
And
the whole purpose.
We actually see it as a condemnation if that happens.
yeah,
Interesting. Alexander Medeiros, Wi-Fi Gospel. I'm sorry, I don't know which you prefer. I think it's Wi-Fi Gospel, but YouTube is being weird with the whole names things. I believe doesn't have to be true in order for it to be logical. P1, it's logical to want a better society. P2, Christianity produces a better society. C, Christianity is logical. Thank you so much for the $10.
Sorry, yeah. So are you saying that Christianity does not produce a better society as a possibility? Like you could just have like the logical entity, but I suppose if you contradict yourself, that would make it not logical.
Yeah, statistically, it doesn't make a better society.
All right, thank you so much. Basil for $5. Christianity is illogical, except for Eastern Orthodox Christianity. That one is totally logical. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Amen. I rest my case. I'm good to go.
Does Bryce and Anthony think the other denominations of Christians are going to hell?
It's not for us to judge.
Yeah, that's not for us to actually make the judgment. We're not on the seat of Christ. But what we will say is that the only salvation that actually occurs is through Christ Church, and Christ Church was established in Eastern Orthodoxy.
If you had to guess, though, like if you had to,
Well,
I'm not saying you're
everybody
judging them.
else.
It would depend on the person. You'd have to ask me like a specific person, right?
Yeah,
Because it
I'm
kind of
saying
depends,
if
right?
If
I'm
they
not,
don't believe in Eastern Orthodoxy, but they're like a Christian in some other denomination, they go to
What if
church
they're not
every week.
Christian? What if they
Are they
dedicated
not?
their
Do you
entire
believe
life?
that they would likely go to hell? That it is likely they would go to hell?
yeah, there's people that are more likely to go to hell than others. Sure. That's why I said you'd have to give me a person, and then we could talk about that. But
Yeah, I mean, so we've got people that dedicated their whole lives to their version of God, and they happen to be Sikh, or they happen to be Hindu, or they happen to be Muslim, or whatever. Nope, you're going to hell. You didn't believe the right collection of nonsense from obvious liars. So you're spending eternity with eternal damnation, an infinite punishment for a finite crime.
correct.
All right. We have more questions, but would you indulge me in one question before we go on, Bryce? Just one quick question. Very well, I guess.
I just want everybody to notice that he said, if you dedicate your life to God, you go through all of the sacrifices necessary, all of it, but you didn't belong to his particular denomination, fuck you. You're doomed. That's his God.
Yeah, the door is narrow. Correct.
Yeah. And bigoted.
Bryce, so I was when you were talking about the word of God and the word was with God, and you were mentioning that verse, What language does God speak?
Well, it's traditionally it's known that he spoke Aramaic, Greek, and Hebrew, and as well as some people also said that he spoke Latin, depending on the context. I mean, technically
Alright.
speaking, like we believe that he's God, so technically, I mean, he could have spoken English if somebody would have went back in time. Sure.
Okay. Wi-Fi Gospel. No-true Scotsman fallacy is an ad hoc rescue. Bryce saying there is only one group of people who are the true Christians is not ad hoc rescue. This is when you were talking about who is the true Christian.
Someone who we're talking about a note. Okay, so hold on. So you're saying that it's inventing a new unsupported reason to save belief from a contradictory evidence instead of admitting error? I don't really understand your question.
He's saying that the way that I worded it would not be considered an ad hoc rescue because that's what a no true Scotsman fallacy is, because of the fact that the doctrine that we follow is not a newly invented system just to get out of contradictions. It's something that existed prior to these denominations that created contradictions.
I mean, despite the fact that there are people that have read on the Great Schism and they disagree with you, it's just you believe that you are correct. Other people are incorrect, even though they came up with the exact opposite conclusion. as a
It's
part of
even
the
better
Great
than
Schism.
that. There's somebody in the chat that thinks that I'm the bigot because Bryce wants to take no regard for anybody dedicating to their lives to God and going through all the sacrifices for everything that they believe is good and holy. God will not observe that. God only cares that you were Eastern Orthodox. And this person is accusing me of being the bigot. That's amazing.
Aron Ra 3590 for $5. Thank you so much. Aron Ra. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it wrong. Aaron. It's my accent.
I should just start writing my initials down. RN.
Aaron. I'm so sorry. I'm mortified, but I cannot. It doesn't come out right.
All right, try to say the word
I'm not doing it on
awe.
purpose.
Try AWE, awe.
Don't. If RN wasn't good enough, if the initials RN wasn't good enough,
RN.
nothing else will be.
I'm sorry. Doesn't know basic Trinitarianism or Christology.
Yeah, I haven't done like a whole lot of study on that. I do a weekly Bible study. I meet with Bible scholars. I have been doing it for years. So yeah, I don't know this better than most believers do. Most of the time, I know both sides of this argument better than they know their own alone.
From everything that I've read regarding the Trinity, it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Each one of them is one, and that it is all the same thing, and that it's all one God. And the encapsulation of God is the three things. It's very strange. I've read it. It's very odd. I mean, I couldn't even get into it because, effectively what it's trying to say is like a 1 + 1 is 1 is 1. It just more, it just doesn't logically make any sense. I mean, you just kind of have to accept whatever it is that the Catholics tell you, or whatever it is the Eastern Orthodox tell you, according to Bryce and Anthony.
I mean, it wouldn't be considered nonsense because, like, if we actually look at the way that the Trinity is defined as, like, when it comes to God being three persons in one nature, when you actually define what a person is and you define what a nature is, especially within the paradigm, it doesn't actually break any laws of logic at all.
I just reject the entire God concept. The whole thing doesn't make any sense.
And I just made a statement that is verifiably true, and people are accusing me of lying about what we can demonstrate in a moment. What a great audience.
Basil for $5. Anthony, are you sad Frank Zappa made a song about the Catholic girls, but not one about Eastern Orthodox girls?
I don't know who that is.
Basil for $5 says hashtag Ryan is looking for a job. Oh, Ryan sent me a message the other day and I replied, but he never got back to me. Arrocoda 3590 for $2 says, is First Amender a dog? If not, no true Scotsman.
It's the same guy from before. Just glad he's donating. I'm glad he's donating money to you, Max.
Thank you. Ex Angry Medic for $2. How many parked cars has Aaron run into? What the hell kind of a question is that? Aaron, I'm sorry. The Bearded
No,
Doctor, $2.
I don't think I contradicted myself once, and there was no feet to the fire moment for me either. I was trying to stay on topic. Everybody else wanted to wander away into what I think is irrelevance.
Basil for $5. Christ is crunchy and juicy. Brenda for $2. Math isn't true, quote unquote. Only propositions are.
She just said math isn't true, so that, I mean, okay.
Well, so it's weird. It's weird to kind of point it. So what math is just a tool that leads us to be able to measure things at an empirical level. That's what math is referring to. And sometimes it requires abstract principles that cannot be observed in reality in order to get to quote unquote truth. But math in and of itself is not necessarily true. It's just a
So how does it
tool
correspond to
bring
reality?
truth.
Well, it
does
sounds
it
like when
correspond
people
to
ask
reality?
if atheism
Predictive
is
outcome.
true.
Again, how does that
It's a
work to
ridiculous
reality?
question. I mean, you can't answer that atheism is true. You're asking a different question, but framed the wrong way.
All right. Basil for $5 to the our Eastern Orthodox friends. What is the most recent miracle that is acknowledged by the Eastern Orthodox Church?
Everon, Mer streaming icon. I actually have a friend that went over there to see it recently. So,
As well as
Well-
every single year on Pascha, there is this miracle in Jerusalem of the Holy Fire, which is a fire that does not burn.
And the same guy keeps saying the same thing that was brought up by people here. Yeah, that things can be true without being empirically verified. You don't know that they're true, but when you say that they're true, now you're claiming knowledge that they are true, and it is dishonest to claim to know things you don't know. Even though that's what faith is all about, pretending to know things you don't know. So I did not contradict myself. And for the next asshole, I'm not going to look at another post from the chat.
If the Bearded Doctor, if you want to debate Aaron, we can arrange that. No worries. But because you seem to be very critic of his arguments today, but that's fine. Ali Pacheco says, Anthony, how do you verify your Bible is true? Is it through some sort of sense? Do you feel it's true? Does God send some kind of signal, aka empirics?
it depends what you mean by true. I mean, we have the witness of the church, and we also have the I used to say the transmission of the text through the apostles from the beginning.
So empirics,
Well, we also have
which you were
the-
criticizing us of doing.
I mean,
No,
like, we don't
it's
say
not-
that you can't use empirics to determine something as true. We never
But you
denied
said that you can't determine truth through empirics. But you're
No,
using
I
empirics
said
to
that.
determine
I
truth.
said
Holy
that the
crap!
no. I said that the
Oh my
critique
God.
that you're using. Hey, do you want to stop spurging for a second?
no
When
logic.
I'm talking about the reason why I said that your argument doesn't follow is because you're critiquing an entire worldview based off of only empirics, and empirics is the only method by
I'm
which
not
it can be
critiquing
done.
the worldview. I'm critiquing whether or not
Christianity is a worldview.
logical. The
Christianity is
question
a
whether or not
worldview, First Amendment.
Christianity- I'm not
But it
asking.
doesn't matter whether Christianity is a worldview or not. Doesn't matter. We're talking
So
about
what is
whether
it?
Christianity is logical.
And what is
Yes.
Christianity?
Christianity holds the way to judge that is to look at what Christianity proposes. And there's a whole lot of it that is not logical. And we didn't get there because you guys had completely different arguments that were arguing past the point.
All right. Next question. Yakavos are dance. Question for the atheist. If you hold to strict naturalism, how do you know that your motives and desires are not completely grounded by the external world? Ergo, you have no free will, even in any sense.
Again, they seem to be asking for absolute knowledge. And I take that most knowledge is provisional. So as I said, I'm able to weigh multiple hypotheses at once and question my own position more than most people do or can. So I don't necessarily know for absolutes on all things, but I know what's most probable. given the circumstances. There's very few things we know for absolutely certain. I know there was no global flood of Noah's Ark. I know that one for absolutely certain. But there's not much that we can know for absolutely certain.
All right, thank you.
But and for I mean, for myself, I believe that truth is effectively that which can yield predictive outcome to a higher degree, that which is closer to more consistent in a predictive outcome is more true than one that is less so. So as to whether or not you consider that to be like the external world, I mean, yeah, I need my senses to be able to see, to read, to hear, to so I suppose that's a form of empirics, but I think it goes a little bit beyond just empirics when you're looking at, okay, well, hey, I think this will happen, and then it does actually happen.
All
Whole
right.
another topic, but I would have loved to have had a conversation on how you verify that any of the things that you believe are actually true. And I don't mean absolutely true. I mean provisionally true. Can you show me there's any truth to it at all?
Yeah, I'm sure we could set something up for that if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't think you can, but I'm game for it.
All right. Brenda, for $2, Precept is the flat earth of apologetics. Thank
It
you
is.
so much, Brenda.
Sounds like somebody who doesn't have the ability to ground logic and mathematics.
Well, it sounds like they got you pegged.
Brenda said she would debate you anytime if you want. We can set that up, Bryce.
She could either do that, or like I said, I do literally free panels that anybody can come up to like 3 to 4 times a week where they can come up and just have a conversation with just me at any point. I don't have anybody trying to boot people or mute people or nothing. I just have free conversations like multiple times a week.
Awesome. And Bryce, everyone's links are
Likewise, I also host when people will come up and want to have a conversation with me and they disagree with me, whether it's about religion or politics. I do a series called Why Do You Believe? And I take people who take a position that is not mine and try to convince me of it. And a couple of times they have.
Nice. Everyone's links are in the description below. Cosmic Witness for £4.99. Amanda, you didn't address what law of logic miracles actually break or whether you disagree with P1.
Because it's not exactly addressing a specific law of logic, like one of the 3 laws of logic. What it's addressing is a contradiction that was made. They're saying that miracles happen, which is something that something that happens absent of anything that happens naturally. And then he then says truths are propositions that correspond to reality. So then an untruth would be the opposite of that. So an untruth being propositions that do not correspond to with reality. So in order for him to be consistent, he would have to say that miracles are untrue, as in they don't happen, but he believes they happen. Therefore, the contradiction.
And then just, I guess I'll add a little thing to that. You actually just demonstrated a law of logic just now by contradicting yourself, saying that it doesn't report to a law of logic and then said that it contradicts. That's the law of logic.
All right, thank you. Jose Javier 1134. How can we verify apostolic authorship outside of our tradition?
Tradition is the very evidence of it. Like we have liturgies and codexes which actually provide evidences for apostolic authorship.
I mentioned that a Bible scholar translated Greek and says that that he did literally say that, and you guys dismissed it on the genetic fallacy that, well, that guy's Mormon, as if that means anything.
Yeah, because he said that it didn't.
Interpretive hermeneutic.
Yeah.
As if it matters that he's Mormon.
Yeah, because he would be interpreting something off of the basis of his own.
He constantly contradicts Mormonism with his biblical scholarship.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, somebody can contradict themselves. That's fine.
Well, that's not what he's doing, as already demonstrated.
The Bearded Doctor for $5. Thank you so much. Mr. Ra said things can be true without being empirically verified. And he said they have to be verified to be true.
In order to say that they are true, in order to know that they are true, you can't say something is true until you know that it is true. There are many things that may be true that you don't know, but if you say that you know them, you better be able to show how you know. Why does nobody fucking get this?
Like for example, something that we can't empirically verify to be true would be the fact that, are there galaxies that exist before 13.543 billion light years old? The answer is most definitely yes. However, we don't actually have any empirical evidence that they are, but we are observing that, galaxies are moving further and further away from us. And there's a lot of empirical evidence to that obvious conclusion, but we don't necessarily have empirical evidence of that conclusion. Does that make sense?
All right, thank you so much. 3Ron, been a member for 4 months, says, Mr. Ross, stop being bigoted toward Max's accent. And they're joking about the whole bigot thing. It's okay. But I think I figured it out. Mr. Ra, do you mind if I call you that? Because I will say it wrong every time. It's not coming out
Just
properly.
take the O
I'm
out
so
of the
sorry.
name. Arn. Arn. It's easy.
Arn. It's very hard for me. Bob No for $5. On a scale of 1 to 10, how batshit crazy were your interlocutors' arguments? Let's start with you, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, probably a 3 or 4. I'm going to be reasonable.
All right,
careful.
thank you so much.
About to say, like, I don't really think that they made any like outlandish claims, because the debate didn't really have to do with them making claims against my own position. It had to be internally critiquing mine. So I mean, I don't really have a number on that one, because they didn't, like, I'll be charitable and say that, like, they didn't really make arguments for their own position. I don't.
We
It's
weren't talking about
you might be
atheism or
overthinking it
humanism.
just a
We were
tad.
talking
It's a
about
joke
Christianity.
question. Go ahead. From 1 to 10, how crazy were your opponent's arguments, Arn?
I just saw most of it as irrelevant. We're talking about Christianity as a whole. We're talking about how illogical is Christianity, right? So we needed to be talking about the beliefs that Christianity holds and everything that is logical or isn't logical about that. And both of the opening arguments for the Christian side kind of just blew past the point. I saw no meat there.
All right, thank you so much.
I wouldn't say they were crazy; they were just irrelevant.
I've had much crazier debates. I mean, there was just yesterday I had a gentleman, they're not a gentleman, who argued whether or not the beating your wife was okay, and he was trying to justify that. So I've had crazier. I'm going to say a 4 for Anthony and a 6 for Bryce. And the reason why Bryce gets a higher score here is because when Aron walked away, Bryce had made an argument that plants existed prior to the sun. It's total bullshit. It's not possible. That can never be possible. It's total nonsense, right? And he's using the Bible as his argument. I'm glad that he at least read his Bible, where it specifically says the plants were made, and it was because of God's magic that
you got to understand, First Amendment. There's a belief perspective where they don't respect evidence. They respect authority, or what they imagine to be an authority. If the authority says X and you have proof that the authority is wrong, you go with the authority, and somehow the evidence is wrong.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Perspective.
All right. Bob No for $10 says the only true super chats are $10 or greater. The rest should be ignored because they're not relevant.
Bro, where are these fans on my chat? Dang, man. Where's the... I'm sorry, I'm messing around.
Brenda for $2. Thank you so much, Brenda. There are no laws of logic. Category error.
Yeah, fruits of atheism. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah. Centrist perspective was telling me you're wrong, Lamau. What do you mean? Of course, plants can survive without sunlight. Well, can it exist without a fucking planet? Because the sun existed before the planets.
Not according to Genesis.
Ugh,
You have 4 days pass before
yeah,
the very
it's total
device
nonsense.
it's supposed to measure days and nights.
All right. And finally, the last question. Angry Medic for $5. Arn, at what point during your contraction did you realize it was a contradiction? During
I
your
don't think I had
contradiction,
a
did you realize it
contraction.
was a contradiction? I think he might have been betrayed by the autocorrect. Maybe it's contradiction.
Okay, well, I didn't have a contradiction.
Fair enough. Alrighty, that's all the questions that we have for today. I already have set up the after show. You will be redirected to the new stream. I'll take just a little short 5-minute break to go to the toilet, and I'll be right back. Yes, I'm in there.
I do have one. There was one question saying, please tell me more about God after you died for 6 minutes and 13 seconds in 2023. Thank you, Media Watch, for the donation. There have been people who talked about near-death experiences and said that they had observed themselves leaving their bodies. And there is like a psychologically like a form of weightlessness that does that is observational in the brain and in the brain chemistry close to death or near-death experience or the lack of oxygen, therefore. And they've done as experiments to try to get this to happen by placing a card above the plenum where nobody would be able to see, and then to try to determine what card that was, and unfortunately was unable to do so.
If I may, 3 things about that. First, I spent years as a neo-pagan occultist doing transcendental meditation, and I realize how, having dealt with a number of these other people too, how deceptive it is to go into this kind of what it ultimately often ends up as being lucid dreaming. And then second, with near-death experiences, one of the senior researchers in that, Susan Blackmore, was once a strong proponent of it. When I started my career, she was still a strong proponent of it, but then she removed herself, realizing that there were no good examples. They after 50 years of research, they still had nothing to show, and very few instances that didn't have a clear explanation. And then the third one is when people in India have a near-death experience, if they're Hindu, they come back with entirely different experiences, having met their gods, and they come back bragging about having proof of reincarnation, things that would disprove Christianity if true. Because the things that these people experience are what their brains were culturally programmed to experience in a moment of extreme duress where their oxygen is, where their brain is deprived of oxygen.
All right. With that, thank you, everyone. Thanks to our debaters. Thanks, everyone there in the side chat, in your respective channels, wherever you're watching this. Before you go, make sure to do the social thing. It doesn't matter where you are. Do the social thing. Is like, share, subscribe. Send this to a friend. Send this to your significant other. Go to the corner. Yes, the corner of your street. And just subscribe to Shadow About the Talks. And that way we can share the love for the channel. We'll get started with the after show in just a moment. It's open panel. We'll discuss the debate, and everyone is welcome. Thank you so much. We'll catch you in just a moment, and we'll be right back. Take care.
Yo, Max, I didn't get any of that last part there, dude. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm sorry.